it's me, Ingrid IFP, and I'm back with my new screen on my same video camera from my same phone. I finally got it fixed, and I went to one of these fixer guys in my town. There are two of them, so I had to choose, unfortunately. Both are really, really nice guys. Yeah, it's kind of funny because I'm used to living in Stockholm, a big town, and my hometown in France was also quite a large town. Maybe not as large as Stockholm, but still. I'm living in a smaller town, and so it's not so small that everybody knows everybody, but still there is I know who works at the eyeglass store. I know who works at the bookstore. I know who works at the two technical shops because that's where I was when my SIM card didn't work. I went to that guy, and so the SIM card guy was willing to fix my phone or to give me a new phone, or I could buy a new phone and save my information from my old one, and he would keep my old phone for the parts, so I would get a cheaper deal. And he's not a really talkative guy, but he's really nice. And then there was the other guy who was more talkative and younger, but he offered to fix my screen for cheaper. So I went to the cheaper guy, and but he wasn't going to sell me a very good phone, so I didn't buy a new phone. So that's where I am. He fixed it in 2 hours because he needed the glue to dry. So he pressed my phone and it through, so that the glue would set. And while he was doing that, I went to the library. So I had a few hours to kill. So first I'm going to show the books that I got. I got The Buried Giant by Kazuo Ishiguro, who is one of my favorite authors. I really like Never Let Me Go, Claire in the Sun, Artist in the Floating World. Yeah, I'm forgetting one. Oh, The Remains of the Day. So I've read those books. However, I have not read The Buried Giant. I have not read The Unconsoled. I have not read Pale View of the Hills, nor When We Were Orphans. But this one seems to be one of his better ones out of the ones I have not read. And The Unconsoled is supposed to be his longest and the most confusing, so I don't know if I'm going to get to that one. The Pale View of the Hills is not at my library, so this is the book that I am going to try to read. I'm looking forward to it because I just love anything that Kazuo Ishiguro writes. Also Nocturnes. I've read Nocturnes, which are his short stories. And then I got this book, I Was Mengelé's Pathologist, by Miklos Niesli. I hope I'm not butchering his name, but it's the Holocaust Remembrance Day, the 27th of January. So my library had this, had Anne Frank's diary and a few other books. So this was one of them, and it's short, so at least there's that. It's going to be a tough book to get through because of the subject matter, but I think that it's an important book, and I think it's especially important because I'm a doctor, so I'm interested in the doctor's perspective of what was going on in Auschwitz, because this is about Mengele, who was the doctor at Auschwitz. I've also been watching a documentary about Anne Frank's sister, who is actually her the stepsister after Anne Frank died because Otto Frank remarried to the stepsister, I guess. Remarried another wife. And so Anne Frank, in Anne Frank's family, it was only Otto Frank who was left. And Eva, the stepsister, had lost her father and her brother to Auschwitz as well. So that's how their stories became intertwined. So that was an interesting documentary to watch. I've also been reading Leaves of Grass by Walt Whitman. I'm a quarter of the way in, and I really like the book. I think that it is very, it's very patriotic, but also I find it really interesting how he talks about how the soul is the body and how everybody's bodies are one, kind of, but how every person contains all of the generations that come after them. And he's the person who said that I am large, I contain multitudes, which is one of my favorite quotes, because that is kind of true. Our identities are kind of, we can be many things, you know. So I think that that is a very good, sometimes it feels like he's wanting to put the entire dictionary of everything in the world, like an encyclopedia of sorts, which sometimes is a little bit funny, but often it's actually really, really nice. He wants to talk about every single plant that there is, every single person that there is, everything that makes America. And I find that really inspiring to read, and it's just like, it flows. Sometimes it's a little bit grandiose, a little bit dramatic, but it's kind of the point. It's supposed to make you enthusiastic about this new country, this, how everybody is a leaf of grass in this huge field of people, of humanity. And he is just really hopeful and just positive about everything that life has to offer and about all humans together. There's a certain poem that is actually kind of strange, where he talks about a slave trade market, but he's praising the body of this slave, which, you know, it would often, from a person at that time, be kind of like dehumanizing a person by making them only like a body. However, because Walt Whitman thinks of bodies as like a reflection of the soul, of actually the bodies being the soul, he's actually instead doing the opposite, I think, by claiming that this slave is a person with a beautiful soul, and actually humanizing instead of dehumanizing, which I think is a feat for somebody of that time. So I really, at first I was like, huh, and then I was like, oh, okay, like this is actually somebody who wants the best for all the people. And yeah, so I really, there are many such poems in the book that make you think, and it does take a while to get through it because there's so much to think about. Another book that I picked up that I haven't started reading is If We Were Villains by M.L. Ryo, which is supposed to be dark academia. I went to read A Secret History by Donna Tartt, but I can't find it at the library, so I would try to read this one. Not really the sort of thing that I usually read, but we'll see. Now, finally we get to the final book, which is a book that I have 100 pages left in. It's the Vaster Wilds by Lauren Groff. I got this recommended by a nurse colleague friend. We ate sushi last weekend, and he usually reads fantasy novels. So we went to the library together because he had to find a fantasy novel. But he recommended this book, and I at first I was kind of put off by it because there's a lot of mentions of pissing and shitting, okay, which is a little bit gross. And it would be okay if it only happened once, but it happens many times. So that kind of, at first I wasn't willing to read it, but then when I finally got into reading it, there's a sort of mystical kind of thing. However, it is not fantasy. I thought that these were going to be like spirits that are following her, but really it's not. These are actual animals that she meets. What happens is that this book is set in the Pilgrim time of the United States, before it was the United States, like the colonial, like Jamestown settlements and all these settlements. She was born an orphan in London, and then goes to the poorhouse, and then at the age of 4 gets sent to be a servant in a minister's house for the minister's wife. She is basically kind of like treated as like a pet rather than a child, and also as a servant because she is 4 years old and she's expected to take care of a newborn child that the minister and his wife have. And her whole life is about taking care of this child, when she's only a child herself. And then she also has to entertain guests, as her job is to sing and dance and be pretty, basically. And she is kind of like the personal, chambermaid of the minister's wife. And then the minister decides to go to United States to proselytize. And so they go to United States or America or whatever this was at the time, the free world. And it doesn't go well because the settlements are riddled with disease. It's a wild place. The Native Americans have conflicts with the settlements, and it's a harsh life out there. And I don't know really what happens, but basically the girl who is taking care of this child, who is only 4 years younger than her, the girl is now 16 or something. The child has an intellectual disability, which means that the child best that she's taking care of is can't take care of herself, and she dies. And then the girl has to run out into the forest where she meets a lot of beasts, has to eat food raw. And it's like the end of winter, it's cold and muddy and awful. She's against the elements alone. And her plan isn't very well thought out. She thinks that she's going to go to, what would be Canada. She wants to meet a Frenchman, because a Frenchman will be a safe place for her. Because she has a crush with this Dutchman on the boat ride, but he dies at sea. So she's kind of been traumatized in 10,000 different ways before even coming here. But she is just looking for a place to be safe, and she's never feeling safe. And she has to keep running because also the minister might find her. But she's also scared of the natives because they don't believe in God, and she is a very God-fearing woman because that's all she knows about life. And yeah, so it's a story about survival. And it's really gripping. Once you start reading it, it's like I have a hard time stopping reading it because you get kind of sucked into the story. It is a little bit repetitive, but it's also you get to understand more and more about her life and how she has come to think certain ways. The language is a little bit strange because sometimes it goes to like kind of formal language and sometimes it goes into really rough language, crude language. It's an interesting book. I don't think I've read another book like it. So I really am glad that I got this book recommended to me. This isn't my favorite book, but I would say it's a really good book. So that's the books that I have read throughout and that I will read. I wanted to get a fantasy book, but I feel like I have enough books to read. I kind of went to get back into fantasy again, but it's not easy. I do want to thank everybody who has been so helpful and nice in my latest video, because I was really not doing well. I'm doing much better after having slept and resting a bit and all that. I also want to thank the people who make videos that make me happy, because that really saves my life, you know. YouTube really calms me down, regulates me in a way, and so it mostly Bufo and Vondelpiet. I really appreciated their latest videos. I appreciate all the commenters. I appreciate yeah, I got a really big Ko-fi donation, which really shocked me, and I kind of thought I was going to have a heart attack, but I'm really grateful for that. And yeah, I feel like things aren't that bad. I think that I can make through a lot of things. It's just I have these crises sometimes that are really taxing on my energy. So it's important for me to regulate and to take care of myself when these kinds of things happen. And yeah, so that's all I had to say. Have a great day, everybody. Bye.